Hello, welcome class. Today we are going to have a quick lesson on solving single-step equations. We are going to be primarily focusing on addition and subtraction. So I created this Prezi presentation for you guys. We are going to go through it together as a class, and then you guys will have a version of this to kind of work through the different explorations. So we are going to focus on the notes sections together, and then after we do that, I will show you how to navigate to various practice scenarios, including extra videos for practice, some vocab practice, practice on Prezi and Bookit, as well as an exit ticket that needs to be submitted by the end of this. So first we will start with our notes section. So at this time you should have your notebook and be ready to follow along with these slides. When you are on this Prezi on your own time, feel free to go back to your notebook as well as these notes to help you. So again, these will be notes on solving single-step equations. The first thing we're going to do is look at some vocabulary. So the first word is coefficient. So as you remember, a coefficient is a number in front of a variable. So in the equation 5x plus 8 equals 123, 5 is the coefficient because it is in front of x. The next vocab term is a constant. So a constant is basically the opposite of coefficient. This is a value that does not change. It is constantly the same number, and it is not attached to a variable. So in this equation, I have 5x plus 8 equals 123. Because 8 is by itself and there's nothing attached to it, that is considered a constant. So in order to solve an equation, the whole goal is to isolate the variable to find out what it is equal to. So isolate is a key vocab term here, and basically it means to get something by itself. So if we are trying to isolate x, you always are isolating the variable in this equation, we want to have x on its own on one side of the equation, which means we need to get rid of the constant that it is near. So this will allow us to have our equation set x equals blank. That way we are able to solve it. So in order to isolate the variable, we need to use what's called inverse operations in order to get this by itself. So on our next slide here, we can see if I have x on the same side with minus 3, if I use the inverse, which we already know is opposite operations, so right now 3 is being subtracted, we are going to do the opposite of that. We are going to add 3. And the reason is, now that I have minus 3 plus 3, this will cancel out and go to 0, which leaves our x isolated or by itself on one side. Now, as we've already talked about in previous lessons, we need to make sure we are balancing our equation. So whatever is done to one side must be done to the other. So because I added 3 on the left, I'm now going to come on the right and add 3. And this is going to get us x equals 8. Now you can see x is isolated and it is set equal to the answer. And the next slide is just to make sure that we are checking our work. We're going to do this through substitution. So if we think that the solution is 8, we came up with the solution of 8, you are going to take that answer and plug it in for the variable. And if I actually plug in 8 and do 8 minus 3, I get 5. And because 5 equals 5, we know that we are correct. All right, so now I'm going to have you try 2 examples on your notebook. I'll give you a few minutes to go through those, and then I will share the answers with you. All right, so hopefully you would agree with what I have shown. So here we subtracted 6 on both sides to get y equals 9, and here's my check. Always want to make sure you're checking. And in this case, I added 10 on both sides to get x equals 40, and again, plug 40 back in to check to make sure your solution is correct. All right, so now that our notes are completed, I'm just going to show you how to navigate through this presentation on your own. So here we have some additional videos. Now this ed puzzle, well, you could start with the song here, and it's just going to take you to a little jingle to help you with all the steps of solving equations. All right, and then for the sake of time, I'll pause that. Next, we have the ed puzzle. So if you click on this image, it's going to bring you up to an ed puzzle that will basically do the notes that we have created, and it will help you talking about balancing an equation. All right, and then next we have, after the ed puzzle, you could go into practice some of the key vocabulary. So this is going to be on Quizlet. So if you click on the GIF here, it's going to pull you up to a Quizlet sample. So it's going to have various tools that you could do. You could do a matching game and other things to go over our key terms. So expressions, equations, variables, and what have you. All right, after you're feeling confident on vocabulary, there is a section just for regular practice. So this says here the Quizzy is mandatory, the booklet will be optional. So here we have our Quizzy. So if you click on, again, the GIF, it will pull you up to our Quizzy. So this will be mandatory. I will get a report of your scores on how well you do here. But if you go back to the booklet, this is if you have additional time and just want to play some extra practice, it's going to take you to the cafe game on booklet. All right, after this, and you can really complete these in any order that you see fit. So again, additional videos, the vocab, the practice. If at all you ever need to return to the notes because you forget some of the steps or a vocab, you can head back there. And then finally, you will be completing the exit ticket, which is on Google Forms. So I do just ask that each student submits an exit ticket so that I'm able to see where we're struggling and what information we feel good with. All right, so that will take us to the end of our Prezi presentation for solving single-step equations. Thank you for listening, and be sure to submit your assignments.